Folks, it's a very special, off-schedule episode of the Hound discussion series live from the San Francisco Sketchfest. Decided when I do these festivals, I'll just give you a little extra bonus episode, and so that's just what I'm doing. And it's something that you need to hear about. It's how to fuck, and how to fuck good, how to fuck consensually, and how to fuck well, how to please your lover, how to peg your lover, how to fist your lover? That might come up too. I don't mean to be vulgar, but vulgarity is the topic of this episode. Allison Moon, the author of Girl Sex 101, is our expert, and she's such a cool, open-minded, good-spirited, fun, and filthy expert of the lovemaking arts, and specifically how to make love to a woman in a way that is, cool. Hey, and the king of cool is on this podcast. Our comedic guests, Andy Kindler, Mr. Cool himself, Michael Ian Black, Aparna Nancherla, and Natasha Muse round out our comedic panelists. It was a very, very fun show, and informative and dirty and educational, and I just think you're going to love it. Hey, come see me live. In February, I'm going to be in the Cayman Islands at the Kaboo Festival. I'll be in Cleveland with Natasha Leggero at Hilarities on February the 28th, I do believe. And I'm also going to the Wheeler Opera House in Aspen on February the 22nd for a part of that Aspen Comedy Festival. In March, we're coming to Brooklyn, New York, to the Bell House, me and Natasha. And as always, we record Hound Tall live the second Wednesday of every month at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater on Wednesday. Second Wednesday of the month, 8 p.m. You should come to a taping. So listen, you've been fucking wrong. Your partner told me. They say you're selfish in bed, you don't know how to communicate, and they really, really, really want to peg you. So, listen and learn.
The Hound discussion series. Topics: academia, history, sex, laugh, learn, professors, experts, etc.
The Hound Tall discussion series with your host, Moshe Kasher.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live from the San Francisco Sketchfest for another installation of the Hound Tall discussion series. Say hi, everybody. Hi. Tonight, how exciting it is, we're going to be talking about how to be good at sex, and luckily we have an expert on that very topic. Put your hands together for the author of Girl Sex 101, Allison Moon, ladies and gentlemen. Say hi as she comes to the stage. And please, you can sit right here, Allison. Please help me welcome our comedic panelists tonight, Aparna Nancherla, Natasha Muse, Andy Kindler, and Michael Ian Black, ladies and gentlemen. Say hi to every single one of them as they make their lovely ways onto the stage to say hi, to talk about sex. Here we go. This will be fun. Everybody's having a wonderful time. Andy's taking a long time to get to his seat. Say where you like, Andy. Hi, everybody. Natasha, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you guys? It's so exciting. I felt like everyone was excited to hear my first name, and everyone was really disappointed to hear my last name.
That feels totally internal, Natasha. I don't think they had that. They were like, we like that. Oh, you mean because of my wife? Is that what you're referencing?
That was the joke, yeah.
Oh, I get it. That was a good joke, and I didn't grab it, and that's my fault, actually. Natasha Muse is here. Michael Ian Black.
Hi.
That's Michael Ian Black. Michael, are you excited to figure out how to be good at sex finally?
Yeah, I mean, I've been married for 20 years, and this would be very helpful for me if I still had sex.
Well, you're not the fuck god that our next panelist is. It's Andy Kindler, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, that's not what your wife told me. Boom! Right out of the chute!
Whoa!
Right out of the chute, I'm sleeping with your wife! Right from the get-go!
That's in the chute.
Aparna Nancherla is here. Hi there. Aparna,
Yeah.
when you read the email saying, would you like to be on the How to Be Good at Sex panel, what was your reaction?
Well, I auditioned for this, right?
Oh, that's right. Well, honestly, I watched your tape. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Let me tell you. I'll start this off with a bit of confession about my own ignorance. I wanted to because the last year we had I fought ISIS was the topic, and things got a little bit politically fraught. And then the year before that, it was protest on the day of the first Women's March. And I was like, this year, I told David Owen, the founder of the festival, I was like, this year I want it to be like something just fun and just non-political, just something that's not fraught at all. And then I was like, I read some article about Bay Area authors, and I was like, oh, sex, that'll be fun. That's not political at all. And then I started reading your book. I was like, oh my God, this is the most politically fraught topic. Oh, how did I not know that? We're like literally in the year of this politically fraught sexuality in a good way, but also I was reading through it and I realized I emailed Allison in a panic. I realized about 50 pages in, oh my God, this book is a book about like girls that have sex with girls. And I was like, I didn't realize that. It's called Girl Sex 101 is the name of the book. What a man I am to look at a book called Girl Sex 101 and be like, it's probably about me. Allison Moon, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, actually, my only one-star review on Amazon is actually a guy saying, I didn't know this was about girls with girls.
And that's fair, and I didn't know at that time you were going to be on my show, or I wouldn't have left that review. I apologize for that. No, and Allison, you talked me off the ledge, honestly, because I panicked a little bit because I was like, I should have booked, only girls that sleep. I don't know what I was thinking. I was having a little bit of a straight white male panic, and which is really, it's actually been a pretty difficult year for us, and you said, I thought this was interesting, and then reading your book, which is fantastic, by the way, I recommend everybody get it, is that a lot of the people that read this book are actually straight men that are trying to learn something from that book. And honestly, it's not, it felt, I'm very good at sex, so I didn't have anything to learn, but like, it felt like, yeah, anyone could read from this book, anyone could learn from this book, and anyone hopefully can learn from this conversation today. So,
sweet.
Thank you. Why, let me ask you right off the top, why sex? Why do you, we all have sex. Why did you?
You mean like evolutionarily speaking? Or?
Yeah. No, yeah, why fuck? No, what? I meant like why did you decide to dedicate your life to sex education?
Oh, sure, yeah. I think a lot of sex educators have a similar story of we were just the precocious kids who all of their friends came to for advice growing up at various stages. My father was a nurse, and so he taught us the right words to use for the different parts, and so I was a kindergartner in Catholic school teaching everybody the words scrotum and vulva.
So you were a popular kid, I see.
I was very in demand, yeah.
One of the priests perks up. Did somebody say scrotum? Interested? But how did you make the transition from being like the most popular, dirty, foul-mouthed kid to a person that is teaching America and the world about sex and sexuality?
Well, I think as I kind of started doing this more often, I realized how few places there are for people to speak candidly about sexuality as adults. Like, if you were lucky enough to get sex education in school, which a lot of us weren't, so you may have gotten like the how not to knock somebody up or get knocked up conversation if you were lucky. But in terms of talking about pleasure, in terms of talking about like, why won't my wife sleep with me anymore, or communication or any of the stuff, there's not a whole lot of venues to discuss that. And so I realized that there was actually room in the market for people like us who talk about pleasure, who talk about desire, who talk about communication skills and non-traditional relationship structures, to be able to just speak to peers and discuss grown-up stuff.
When you talk about it like that, I just get so jealous of all the people that grew up not being told about sex, because I had the absolute opposite experience. My mom was like this deaf feminist Berkeley hippie who would sit us down and show us her vibrator growing up. I would have loved for her to be a little bit more parochial and ashamed of sex and sexual. My mom, man, she's deaf and had a Hitachi magic wand. I know the brand name of the vibrator, and I also know the sound they make and have since I was a very young boy, because she had no relationship to the concept of sound. So at any rate. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so hard for us to talk about sex? Because even in reading your book, I was thinking to myself, I can see the points where this conversation is going to get, people are going to get uncomfortable.
He said hard.
Perfect timing, Andy. What do you think? Why are we so messy about having these conversations?
I mean, I think it's baked into the culture. I mean, Judeo-Christianity really fucked up a lot of things. Colonialism fucked up a lot of shit. Sorry, we were not supposed to get political, right? We're supposed to.
No. I'm not saying don't be, but it's not possible to avoid. But is it true? Does that bear out? Or in non-Western, non-Judeo-Christian cultures, are they just like, oh, my dick is so hard right now? Like,
I mean, everybody's got their shit, but I think that there is this level at which it's there's this fear of discussing it, as though if by discussing it we are going to bring about some sort of horrible plague. And I think that the actual opposite bears itself out in the evidence, which is like the more we teach young people about sex, the later they actually have sex, because they're getting information as opposed to having to go do it somewhere in order to learn.
But like it's not even just difficult for us to talk about sex, like our sexualities are really kind of wonky and fucked up. Like it's very difficult to be like a confident sexual being. Do you think that's all part and parcel? It's because we don't talk about it that we also are so freaked out and anxious about sex?
Well, I mean, I would like to maybe put this back on you, because as the person who grew up in the Berkeley household, I mean, you had a libertine upbringing, it sounds like, to a certain degree. Do you feel like you had more complexes than your non-libertine friends?
No, I didn't. The only complex I had was from my mother. Like I never felt any kind of weird fraught relationship with sex and sexuality. But even in reading your book, I was seeing the places in which I could have done better in my nascent sexual years. So I guess like that's an interesting thing to think about. Like even me, who grew up with like, I couldn't have had a more sexually accepting, anti-slut shamey, feminist sexual education upbringing. I still fell victim to a lot of the bullshit that people fall victim to.
Well, yeah, I mean, because not just in the household, it's everywhere. And I think that, when you grow up in a very conservative nation, let alone a conservative household, you might feel like your body's changing, you're having experiences of pleasure, but we never get taught that sex and pleasure are inextricably linked. We might talk about sex and all the dire consequences of it, but we often don't talk about it's actually natural for even children to masturbate, right? We don't talk about that as a natural part of just being a human being. And we kind of have this notion at puberty is when we're supposed to have these conversations. But sexuality is inextricably linked to the entire life cycle.
What's the appropriate age to start sucking your dog's dick?
Michael, how long were you sitting on that one?
Well, you know what's cool about...
Like 15 seconds. I was just waiting.
No, what was cool about that riff was that it could have been inserted at any point in tonight's discussion when things were getting a little too serious, and I appreciate that.
He'll bring it back. It'll be another callback.
Do you have an answer to that?
How old is the dog?
That's a great question. At what age can dogs give consent? Yeah. Wait, Natasha, you feel so far away. Natasha, you have kids. How do you talk to them about sex and sexuality?
I actually saw my 6-year-old staring wistfully out the window while she was clam jamming, and
well, that's so French cinema.
Yeah, it's really nice. I was like, I just was like, that's an alone time thing, That's a private time thing. I didn't shame her,
That's good. I think that's a good start.
That is good. That's positive.
It was that good. I mean, I didn't want to tell her not to do it. I just was like, maybe I don't need to watch.
That is a very, very responsible parenting choice.
Thank you so much.
Very mature.
You just checked once to make sure she wasn't making eye contact with the neighbor across the street.
Hey, Moshe, having sex is like riding a horse. You fall off a couple of times, you get very frightened. Just wrote that. I wrote that.
I'll be honest, Andy, it felt written.
Did it feel written? It didn't feel from the heart?
So, Allison, what makes someone good at sex? Let's start there. Like, how do you be good? How do you be good? What does that mean?
Well, this is where I'm going to be a little bit of a buzzkill. I feel like everybody wants...
Don't worry, you've been a buzzkill already tonight.
Awesome.
Is buzzkill the name of your deaf mother's vibrator?
No, it's the name of what happened to your dog. You killed Buzz! No. Daddy, you killed Buzz! What do you, Buzz. Yeah, well, I told Allison, as I tell all of the experts on the panel, I go, you are going to be interrupted in far more immature ways than you're probably used to in this So please try to grab a hold of your train of thought. I was asking what makes someone good at sex. What does it mean to be good at sex? What?
Yeah, so people often want to hear like technique or positions or toys that they can buy that make them better. But I think the truth is that it's a little bit more esoteric stuff. It's like curiosity and empathy and communication and experience, right? Actually, that's a framework, Cece. I've been writing that. I'm working on a new book. But yeah.
Oh, so experience helps.
I think experience helps a lot.
Hell yeah.
Well, this is.
Somebody call my wife. That'd be a funny conversation to have. Listen, I was talking to an expert. She said the more experience, the better. So I gotta go sow these oats. I'll be back in 5 years.
But it's not just experience with other partners, although I think that's absolutely like invaluable. And being able to experience a variety of different bodies is hugely helpful, because if you have a certain body of work or body of understanding,
or a body of bodies, I guess you would call it. Yeah.
It helps you understand like the person, like a flexible mind, right? Because I think there's this notion that like all bodies behave the same way, all penises like the same kind of touch, all clitorises like the same touch, all humans do. But that's completely not the case. And so the more you can actually explore different aspects of touching other people, the more you can learn. But it's also really important for masturbation.
Wait, so you're saying that different people like their penises touched in different ways? So not everybody likes like as hard a grip as possible with a hard yanking toward your body.
I don't know. I think we have penis owners in the audience. You could ask them.
I just figured that was a universal truth of penis ownership, but wow, this has been illuminating. Okay.
I'm very fast in bed. That's all I'm telling you. I wrap it up. Get it over with. Let's go.
That's what you like? You like to wrap it up?
Well, it's like a horse. Like riding a horse?
Riding a horse. Fall off.
They start playing his music when he like about 2 pumps in. They're like na 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 na. Okay.
I like how
I have a question.
You're snapping your fingers like Thanos over there. That's nice.
I just can't. The audio is so bad that I know there's comedic gold happening down there. I can't hear anything.
I love Echo. I love Echo for conversations.
You gotta
love it. This is like a Last Supper table.
This is exactly like the Last Supper.
Does that make you Jesus apart?
I feel like it's a pretty great analogy.
And Jesus eventually did teach them all about how to get pegged, and that will come up soon. Well, no, we're gonna talk. You're right. That was offensive.
What's in the Holy Grail?
My cup runneth over with what I don't know. But speaking of buzzkill, this is a serious question. You have 5. You always know it's a serious question when someone says this is a serious question. But you have like 5. There are like 5 pages of disclaimers in the beginning of the book, and it made me like a various like okay, sex is this, but it can also be this. You know, a woman is this, but it's also this. Like, and I was thinking like. Has our sensitivity around sex and sexuality and sexual identity made sex better? Do you think?
Hard yes.
Yeah.
Hard yes. I mean, I think it makes people have to work harder, which can be scary. It makes us have to learn a little bit more, which is scary. But yeah, the more we can appreciate the diversity of bodies and hearts, the better off society is going to be. And so yeah, absolutely. Like, I think like Girl Sex 101 is trans-inclusive intentionally because I wanted to show that like you can touch penises in similar ways to vulvas, and that can be both really sexy but also really affirming, right? And that's important to understand. So. And then this is the thing about sex education. Like, sex is not a monolith, right? Like, I have ideas. I read research and I conduct one-on-one experiments. But
yeah, hell yeah. You know what I'm saying? I know what you mean by that.
What a racket, huh? What a racket.
But yeah, I mean, there's only so much that I can say. Like, ultimately, the person who you have to defer to is not me, the sex educator. It's the person who's in front of you in bed, or behind you, or below you, or above you in bed, and their expertise of their body. Which is why I think everybody should is a hard word in sex education, but I encourage people to become experts in their own body first, so that you can actually start to teach the you 101 when you're with somebody new of like how to win with you, how to touch you in a way that you know that you like. And that helps everybody have a better time.
Will you talk to me? Will you talk to me?
Sure, Moshe.
I need a friend. No, can we go through like do you ever do this? Like you teach me, like can we have like a affirming consensual conversation about what we want? Like guide me, Obi-Wan.
Do I need to talk to your wife?
No, she's cool. No.
There's no talking to her, I'll tell you that.
No, my wife's. You know what? My wife's name is Natasha. So ask Natasha Muse. She'll be a surrogate for my wife tonight.
I'll just check in with you,
Can we do
Natasha.
this experiment?
Yes.
Okay.
Role play.
I can't hear what's going on down there, but I'm just
I
yes
know.
anding.
It's not right. We need a curved table. That's what we need. A curved
I've done
table.
this panel.
See, that's what we learned. It's okay if it's straight. It's okay if it's curved. Whatever you have.
That's right. I saw that commercial.
When it comes to sex and sexuality, all those things are good. When it comes to podcast recording, straight is absolutely out of the question, and also Swedish American things are bad. Okay, so yeah, how do we talk about and if you want somebody else.
Are we negotiating a scene? What are we doing?
God, I don't know. I never did improv. I'm mostly a stand-up. But no, I want to know, like you were saying, like talking openly and having these conversations about what you're into. There's actually a kind of a structure that you recommend how you talk about what you want in the book, and I thought it was pretty illuminating. And one of the things I think a lot of people are freaked out about right now, we're moving into this era of affirmative and verbal consent at every phase, is that people are like, well, that's gonna kill the vibe. That's a buzzkill or whatever. As if a Vanity Fair spread 20 years from now about how you're a sexual monster isn't also a bit of a party pooper. But the way that you break it down was really, I thought, it felt like you would stay in the moment, you would stay in the mood, but you would still be really clear about.
Can I maybe offer like an illustration that would maybe set the scene? So
yes, you
Moshe,
can, Michael.
you and I are together, and I say to you,
yes,
will you pop this zit on my back? Is that?
And I say to Michael, I would rather suck your dog's dick.
Good.
Yeah.
I feel like that's good. And then I say, I'll be your little dog, bitch.
And then I say, Michael, I can tell you're flirting with me and trying to hook up with me, and I would definitely be down to do that, except that you have horrifying acne all over your back, and I'm not. For me, that doesn't work.
Too soon. Too soon.
Are you sure that you don't do improv? this sounds like a lot of improv shows I've been to.
Wait a minute. I know a not compliment when I hear one, Aparna. That felt in the realm of not compliment.
No way.
Yes, and I wish it had lasted longer. A minute.
But so yeah, Allison, tell me how do you talk about the things that you're uncomfortable with? Because even if you want to have a conversation and you want consent and you want to make sure your partner treats you the way you want to be treated, it's very ooky and difficult to have those conversations. It feels embarrassing, right?
Well, it can, absolutely. I sympathize with that. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I still get in my head sometimes when I'm with a person that I really want to impress and I'm freaking out. Like, I get that. And at the same time, I think consent has become so scary to talk about because we only ever hear it in context of non-consent. We don't often hear it in times of like, instead of being like, oh, can I please put my finger inside? It's just like, can I put my finger inside of you? I really want to fuck you right with that. Like, you can have it, like, you can have sexy time, dirty talk that is consent-based, right?
All you have to do is drop an octave or two, and that's awesome.
It works for me. I don't know.
Oh, you want to pop?
Did it work for anybody else in the room?
You want to pop this zit on my back? I'd love to, Michael. And what about talking about you talk in the book about talking about things that you need to disclose to people or you need them to know about you, but you're afraid to tell them.
Sure.
Can you take us through that?
Yeah,
too?
I think there are a lot of things that, again, this is where kind of doing your own homework before you get naked in bed with somebody is a really useful thing. Understanding words that really work for you. For instance, in the room, how many people love the word pussy? Really?
I do think that. Do you think that would have been a higher number before Trump? I do.
He kind of ruined the word.
He ruined it. Not that it was like everybody was like, I hope a man is going to say the word pussy tonight in that comedy show. But I definitely noticed a marked difference in the way that people reacted to the word. You think, Aparna? What do you think?
But it's great for the pink hat yarn movement.
That's true. The pussy hat contingent has gone up. So that was very few. I'm sorry. I interrupted your experiment.
So pussy, all right. How about the word cunt? Anyone a fan of the word cunt? All
the
right,
same two people have raised their hand. I will be honest.
Are those plants? Do we have plants in the audience?
Yeah, right. I have cunt plants in the audience.
In England, I use the word a lot.
Allison, are these just things that I should put on my LinkedIn profile? Words that I like and words that I don't like?
exactly, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it's an area on your LinkedIn profile of words that you like to use during sex, and like there's also like prick or cock. You know, if you like.
Wait,
penis,
I want to know.
vagina.
I want to keep surveying
sorry,
the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know if the two people that liked cunt and pussy, you say prick, they're like, That's offensive to me.
Yeah. Okay, so how many, to refer to your own parts or to have somebody refer to them for you in bed, how many of you are pro-prick? No one?
I like people to call my...
New Yorkers are usually more prick.
Okay.
What about liberal cuck?
That
I don't
turns me
think
on.
I've ever
That
had
really
someone
does.
in a sincere way refer to my penis as a prick. That feels so aggressive and interesting to me. I've had many times people refer to my personality in that way. Okay, so we had very little engagement on pussy, very little engagement on cunt. Almost no. There was one prick raised his hand
Thank
for
you.
prick. I'm sorry. Why did I point at you? That's the opposite. This is why I shouldn't be a sex educator. This dude right here. Look at him. He's fucked up. Dude's got issues. Okay, so prick. Okay.
Yeah, and then what, cock? Any pro-cock?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay.
Come on.
Cock. All right.
That's the only substantial engagement we've
What
got.
do the rest of you use? I feel like I've gone through most of them.
I think like most people, I when I'm feeling sex, I want my penis to be referred to as a little wee wee.
I love baby talk like that. Do you want to give me your little wee wee?
Yeah, perfect.
I love that so much.
A widow.
Oh, yes, you can.
So what you're asking about is like everybody has different. And I'm not. Tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like what you're asking about is like what people's comfort level is with dirty talk and what they want themselves and their parts to be referred
Well,
to
even
as, right?
not necessarily dirty talk, but just like what words work and what words will take the wind out of your sails, right? Like if somebody calls my junk a yoni, I'm done.
There's so many bad words for vagina.
But yoni has such a specific connotation of just a person just like the theme camp I was in this year, brother. With wah 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 wah. That's a didgeridoo that he's playing that he got for anyway.
I don't like punani either.
Natasha, you look like you have something to say.
I thought yoni was a word for grandmother.
What's interesting is I like when somebody refers to my penis as a grandmother. It's just comforting, make you buy. Having kids? I mean, it's harder to talk dirty when you have kids. You have to be quiet.
Do you mean to your kids?
What's that? What'd you say?
Are you saying it's hard to talk dirty to your kids?
No,
or just crazy?
No, I mean like I do feel like once you have kids, everything feels so much more domesticated in your house. You just feel like you're not the fuck champion you once were.
Yeah, like
My penis was grandfathered in.
What were you gonna say, Natasha?
the last time I heard prick was when that princess did it to her finger.
It's a metaphor for sex, by the way. The Grimm's definitely intended
Sleeping
that.
Beauty. You guys don't know fairy tales? Is that?
I was nodding appreciatively when you said
Thank
it.
you. Can you please nod louder for the podcast?
Yeah, Michael, from now on, when you nod appreciatively, say the words, I am nodding appreciatively. I get the reference. Okay, so yeah, so we're talking
So
consent.
knowing words that work for you, knowing words that don't work for you, knowing, like, being able to share your pronouns, especially if, like, and using any words that would be akin to misgendering you or
By the
somebody
time you get into
disrespecting
bed
you.
with somebody, I feel like you should know their pronouns.
Yeah, I agree, but a lot of people, you
Yeah, what if
fast.
you're at an orgy?
That's so fair. Yeah. Oh my God, that reminds me, Aparna, of an experience I once had. No, when I started comedy here in San Francisco a long time ago, there was a venue called Spanganga Gallery that they did a lot of like alt comedy shows at, and at the same venue, does anybody remember Spanganga? Oh, it's old school. Okay, wow, I feel like, wow, you really have gentrified. But at that same venue, Natasha, were you in the city back then?
No, I'm not that cool.
Okay, awesome. So I'm
Sorry.
the only one. But at that same venue, there was a sex party called Darkness Falls, and the theme of the sex party was that it took place. Do you know about this?
I've heard tales.
Yeah, so it took place entirely in the dark, and it was you couldn't
And
see
everybody
anything.
fell over.
Everybody fell over for multiple reasons. And they would have, the only light was glow-in-the-dark stickers on the buckets where condoms and dental dams and stuff were. And you would literally like fumble your way through an alternative comedy venue and like just fuck whoever you would touch. Like there was, and they had, I remember I looked at the website for comedic research purposes only, and there was, this is really true, there was a section in there on what to do if you're going to Darkness Falls, on how to negotiate if one of your siblings also wanted to come to Darkness Falls. I swear to God. And they were like, they're in the segment, it was like, you know, we would suggest setting up a series of a code word so that you know who it is before you engage sexually. We suggest kumquat. They said kumquat. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of a cool idea, kumquat. Or also like, hey, I'm going to a sex party tonight that's in the dark, and if you came, I might fuck you, which I don't want to do. So that's my code word. Kind
Clear
of
direct communications usually preferred. Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, orgy, that was what, improv, UCB 101.
Yes.
Mod, yes,
That feels
and.
like the adult version of those haunted houses where they're like, it's eyeballs, but it's grapes.
Right.
And you're like, I thought it was a penis, but it's my brother.
It's eyeballs or it's prick, depending on what you're
Or it's a
into.
prick, yeah.
So that's how you're saying that's how you have these tough conversations about sex is, obviously you have to be brave, right?
I think it helps.
And you had a structure in there on how to tell someone though. It was like, here's what, I have to tell you something.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, actually, that's a difficult conversation formula that was created by my partner, Reed Mahalka, who's here. So it's a...
Who also likes the words pussy and cunt, everybody.
Yeah!
Okay.
I scored! Yeah,
Or
so...
did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So the difficult conversation formula where it's like, you know, this is usually helpful when it's about having to have a big conversation about something that you're often afraid to talk about. And this is a good idea to do like before you get into the sexy time, right? You're doing it in a neutral space when people are generally feeling good. But you say like, you know, I have something to tell you. I'm afraid if I tell you this is what's going to happen. This is what I want to have happen, and then this is what I want to tell you, right? It's a very basic kind of broken down thing, and this can be as simple as like, you know, hey, I have some pain in my body that's new and it's freaking me out, and I just want to let you know because I want to get sexy with you, but I don't know how I'm going to feel when things happen, right? And it can be all the way up to like having intense relationship conversations. But it's a good formula for kind of like letting people, it's like setting people's expectations and then being able to have like, you know, making sure that everybody's on the same page about we are having a difficult conversation now.
So can you go through the formula again? It's,
Yeah.
I have something to tell you.
I have something to tell you. This is what I'm afraid of.
Okay.
This is what I want to have happen.
Uh-huh.
And this is what
And this is what it is. Michael.
I'm still stuck on the neutral place. Do you mean like going to Denny's?
No,
Denny's is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
you're saying a non-sexual place, right?
Yeah, like so. This is I would not recommend
you don't want to have
doing
this conversation at Darkness Falls.
Right. While yeah. Right. While somebody is one digit inside of me. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. No, that would be the wrong time.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is a little bit more of an intense thing. A lot of times when we're trying to communicate things in terms of sexy time, it's just like delivering the information and like it's like you're not telling somebody that you killed their goldfish. You're like, hey, just so you know, like I really prefer you use the word cunt instead of pussy, no big deal. Or, hey, by the way, like I'm on my period right now and I just want to check in with you about that.
But
like,
wait, so the formula would be, I have something to tell you.
My dick is too big.
Right. No, but we're not doing the formula. It's. I have something. Okay, I want to tell you.
I have Peyronie's disease. I just saw a commercial
What
for it.
is that?
It's it's curved.
Okay, Michael.
That's what they say in the commercial.
Michael, I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for me to tell you, and I'm afraid that once I tell you, you won't like me anymore.
I'm sure that's not the case.
What I want to have happen is for you to leave the comedy community. And what I have to tell you is I've never respected you as a comedian. Is that right?
perfect.
I hear you,
Okay.
and I've never wanted to fuck you more.
We did it. We did it. But it really worked. When I read it in the book, on a serious note, I just think Michael is one of the funniest people in the world. But and everybody on this panel, I love this panel. And I think you're one of the best sex educators I've ever had on this podcast.
Thanks.
So on a serious note, though, the formula really worked. I mean, it really. When I was reading the examples that you gave, it just felt like it took so much of the negative ions out of that conversation. Because I feel like when you have a scary conversation with somebody about sex or what you're into, what you're not into, it's so difficult to just open your mouth in the first. Everything feels like double entendre, but in the first place, and just say like, this is what's true for me. And with that formula, it really felt like it. Do you remember any examples from the book that you could?
Yeah, I mean, one of the harder examples was that a woman is talking to her partner about having been abused as a child in foster care, and how just she had a trigger reaction. So like, I just want to let you know, like, the reason why I got triggered during that movie was because of some stuff I never told you about, and I just want to have this be an opportunity for us to learn about each other more and be able to understand each other more. And so here's the stuff.
And I remember that passage. She said, "I'm afraid you're going to reject me, or think or something like, I think I broke some version of, I think I'm broken because of it." Right. And it just felt like when somebody lays their fears out, because sex is so just addled with fear already. When somebody laid their fears, I just felt like just reading those examples, like this is a perfect formula on how to have this conversation, which is so difficult. Yeah. Anyway, kudos, and let's move on. Orgasms.
Sweet. Pro.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, anti. I'm not into them. I've never liked that part. But actually, you mentioned that. You say that some people aren't really into them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there are people who identify with stone, which aren't people who like to feel necessarily pleasure.
Right.
They're asexual.
Stone means what?
So stone is a word that's used mostly in the lesbian community to refer to a person who doesn't like their body necessarily being touched or receiving sexual pleasure. This word existed before the identity of asexuality existed. So I think that you could probably make a case for stone being somewhere on the asexual spectrum. But people who are stone often do like giving pleasure. They just don't necessarily like receiving sexual pleasure.
Right. They don't like their genitals touched, is what you said.
Yeah.
And is there any such a thing as time onset stone? So like if you go long enough and you've wanted to get laid but you couldn't, eventually you're just like, you know what? I'm actually stone, it turns out.
You like literally calcify, your genitals calcify?
Something like that.
Probably.
Okay, we talk a lot about, because it's Girl Sex 101, a lot of the focus is on female orgasm. Why does it take women longer? Does it take women longer? I know the answer to this. Why does it take women longer?
You think you know the answer to that.
Why does it take some women longer to have orgasms than their male counterparts or their cis counterparts or whatever?
Yeah, my personal opinion, and there may be research to back this up, is that it's a mix of cultural and anatomical realities, right? I think the anatomical realities is that a lot of times girls take longer to explore their bodies because of culture, or also because a lot of our parts on the inside, so we don't necessarily see them sticking out and wake up and you're like, oh, I want to put that in something, which is how a lot of young men or a lot of young penis owners explore sexuality, is that suddenly this thing is standing up and you're like, what do I do with that?
No, I mean, honestly, my young men's sexuality wasn't just like thinking it. It was like, I'm going to put my penis in that, and I'm going to cut a hole in that melon and find out what's in there. My mom was always reading to me from this book called Boys and Sex, and it was horrifying. Tuesday nights were like the worst. And my mom, I don't know if there's such a thing as being too accepting of being gay, but if there is, it's my mom.
She was leading you towards gay?
Yes,
yeah.
We got a distinct impression it wouldn't just be okay if we were gay. She'd really prefer it. And she would ask us every year, are you gay yet? It's just okay, Mom.
Have you tried it though? Just try it once. You might like it.
What was it? What about you? I don't want to get too personal with their comedians. I don't know what their comfort level is, but Aparna, what was your exposure to sex education growing up like?
My parents were both doctors, interestingly, so we had a lot of medical textbooks around our house. But I don't remember. I remember learning about sex pretty early on, but there wasn't anything gross about it. It just felt very functional.
Wow. The audience finally did the classic San Francisco And Michael, what about you? Did you have what was your sex ed style growing up?
We had it in school. We had sex ed in school.
But it's so clinical in school, it never feels like they're actually teaching you how to have pleasure, right?
Oh, it wasn't a class. My teacher fucked me.
Natasha, what about you?
I'm trying to. I grew up in New Hampshire. I don't think we had sex out there.
You guys had flannel, right?
Yeah, we had flannel. Yeah, we could. Yeah.
That's actually a fair point. I do feel like.
Thanks.
Well, it is
so
the
much.
granite state, right? I mean, that is New
the
Hampshire.
Stone State.
Stone
Yeah,
State.
that's
No, but I do
true. We
feel
just
like-
gave pleasure.
Guys, that was
to
a pretty quick pull on my part, so
Yeah.
thanks.
Thanks for skipping
Guys
me,
pull
Moshe.
faster,
I know
so
you're
that was
skipping.
great.
I hadn't skipped Andy. I was doing it in an
I was just
off-kilter
being an
order. I'm
idiot.
coming
I was
back.
being an idiot.
But that is kind of weird. I do feel like you're right, Natasha. Like growing up in Oakland Public Schools, feel like I was exposed to a different level of sex education than somebody growing up in a different state. So it's like, it also would literally depend on the person, literally where you were born and raised, how comfortable you are with your sexuality or with how quickly you can come. You're like, wow, you came quick. You're like, yeah, no, I'm from the Bay Area. That's what I always said anyway. Andy, what about you?
I have a very funny anecdote from my real life. It's a true story. We never talked about anything in my family. I mean, leave that not talked about, we often said. But the first time I got an erection is a true story. I didn't know what it was, and I ran through the house saying, "It's up, it's up." And my mother said, "Don't worry, it will go down."
That is so cute, honestly, in a weird way.
That really happened.
That's so
It's pretty
cool.
good for a mom.
That's the only cool thing my mother ever said to me.
Did
She said it was later. She goes, "It's your fault that you have an erection."
Did you sue Pixar for stealing the idea for Up from that story? Okay. So there's a combination of physiology and psychology and patriarchy that makes women sometimes some women not. I mean, is it just true that women in general who are I guess it's actually the physiology part would be we're talking about cis women. Is that right or are we not? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that, when, in terms of, people who grow up with vulvas, so not even cis women, but people who grow up with vulvas, oftentimes there isn't necessarily a natural exploration that happens necessarily unless you find that, you touch yourself in a way and it feels good and then you stick with it, which is like awesome. But I think that there also is the reality of that as far as we understand so far, the clitoris takes longer to engorge than the penis does with blood. And the clitoris is erectile tissue. It's made out of the same stuff that penises are.
That's a little weird, right? Because it's like not as big.
Oh, but is it?
Oh,
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
My favorite sex fact ever, is that pound for pound, inch for inch, the clitoris is the same size, has the same amount of erectile tissue as the penis.
Whoa, really?
Same amount. But most of ours is just on the inside. The internal clitoral structure is big and sophisticated.
You said pound?
Yeah.
Wow.
It made a lot of sense to me, Natasha. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the weight structure I feel very comfortable in. Well, that's wild. You're saying that it's literally the same amount of tissue?
So this is a larger
Whoa,
version
holy
of
shit,
the
we have
clitoris.
props.
Sorry for those listening at home. This is not an actual size. This is, I think, about twice the average.
Wait,
the
what
average
is
size.
it? It
Can I
looks like a
describe
little
it?
creature.
Wait, can I describe it?
Yeah.
I know what this is. It's not usually suspended like this, like a little creature, but okay,
Yeah.
this is like, that's the clit, right?
That's the clit.
I found it, finally. What we're looking at, just for those at home, is we're looking at if you could imagine like a W with an extra stick an M with an extra stick and then a little horn on top. So an M with one extra stick and a unicorn M with one. If you're listening at home, what you're looking at now, it's a M with a unicorn horn, extra stick.
It's like a wishbone with two turkey goblets.
That's right.
That's good.
That's
yeah.
good.
I think
Andy?
I nailed it.
I think it looks a little like Slender Man. So
It does.
Right? You're looking
Yes.
definitely at a bit of a Slender Man / Guardians of the Galaxy character.
Yeah.
Natasha, what are you looking at?
I just love how you started with an upside down W. Like that was how you began. And then you were like, there might be a better letter. There might be one that's more accurate.
I never claimed I was smart, Natasha. An upside down, that's all I know. I know that the penises and clits are weighed by the pound, and I know that there's a letter in there that's an upside down W. Andy, what are we looking at?
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay, great. So you're looking at all of the members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Allison, you may continue.
That just put my young upbringing in the whole new context. So this is the clitoris. This is a 3D printed model of the clitoris. And so again, what we normally see on the outside of the body is just the glands, right? Just the tip of the iceberg. And the rest of it is underneath. It's in the vulva. And so I can, So actually,
You want me to
do you mind
hold? Oh,
holding?
yeah,
Thank you.
fair. I understand why.
So it's kind of like, again, because we're not, so it's like a little bit facing down. And so we've got these crura, these are the clitoral legs that kind of go back towards the spine. And then we've got the clitoral bulbs that go around the outside of the vagina. So basically, part of the engorgement of the vagina during arousal is that these clitoral bulbs get filled up with blood, and then they kind of pull the vagina open, kind of like the soma on the bottom of a leaf, if you remember bio from 7th grade. So they kind of pull the vagina open in this really sexy term known as vaginal tenting.
I kind of think that is sexy in a way. I love camping.
That's an Instagram filter, right?
Yeah, so understanding. So oftentimes this is why people with clitorises often really enjoy grinding on things, because we're not necessarily just about stimulating the tip of the clitoris, the glands that's on the outside. We're actually stimulating the entirety of the clitoris on the inside, the grinding, the humping. This is why often when people are playing with somebody with a clit for the first time, they can be a little bit too delicate in some ways, where they kind of gently, like just touching the outside, the portalingus style of cunnilingus,
Wait,
right?
is this seriously something you've experienced? Is a person pawing at your clitoris?
It's like, just to give the audience at home a visual, it's like you're scrolling through social media.
That's right.
Oh my God, can I use
I'm
that?
looking for this goddamn vagina tenting filter. Nothing.
Yeah. But yeah, so like pressure is really important for people or who are born with clitorises, because you can have all of the yummy insides parts of the clitorises kind of get ground on and get all yummy feeling. And this is why often penetration feels good. So there's this notion that like there are separate orgasms. There's a clitoral orgasm, there's a cervical orgasm, there's a vaginal orgasm. That's not true. They're all clitoral orgasms. They just are stimulating different parts of the clitoris, either the inside or the outside.
My mind is boggled by this whole back upside down W area. That's cool. Like, I don't want to say how old I am, but I'm in my early 20s, and I'm just learning about all of this tissue.
Yeah.
I've been doing it wrong.
There you go.
No, I haven't.
Is sweet and savory? What?
What'd you say, Andy?
I'm sorry, I talked over something. I said, is sweet and savory a good way to...
Oh, okay.
Area.
Glad I went back to you.
Yeah. I was 2 sentences away from umami.
Now that would have been wonderful. Okay, so in the book you discuss people that are pre-orgasmic, right? And but then you say something that I didn't know, which is that I think we all kind of, it's like an anecdotal information that there are some women, mostly women. Have you ever met a man that's never had an orgasm?
Personally, I don't know.
Or have you heard of one? Why did
Yeah,
I put it in first person?
Certainly. Yeah,
Do you have any friends who've never come? Or no, I didn't mean. I meant, is that?
Yeah, no, that's a hard boundary for me.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. And
I
have a new card.
Certainly there are people of all genders that have trouble orgasming or orgasming consistently. And again, I think one of the problems is when we kind of tend to catastrophize that. We tend to think of these people as broken, or we think of ourselves as broken if we're those people who've never had that before. And so I think that's a huge detriment in general, because orgasm requires this really weird combination of tension and relaxation, right? So if you have issues with tension or relaxation, you might have a hard time coming.
Right.
This is for people who are on anti-anxiety meds, for instance. You might have a hard time coming because it's messing with your ability to create tension and relaxation at the same
only
time.
reason I have a hard time achieving orgasm is I'm like a wicked cocaine addict, and I have been for a long time. I haven't had an orgasm since the 80s, man. It boggles the mind how I have a brand new daughter.
Right?
Yeah. But then there was a fact in the book. So we know about this information that some people haven't come yet, or even live their whole lives and never have an orgasm. But you said something in the book that was really interesting, which is that every human being is capable of it. It's not ever, no matter what.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, technically, scientifically, every nerve is capable of having an orgasmic response. It's really just an overstimulation of the nerve where it kind of releases a bunch of, I don't know, remember what it is?
Jollies.
Yep. And then...
Thank God you're here. Your parents really were doctors. They're called Jollies, Aparna. Now go forth and make the people laugh.
That's fantastic. So yeah, then it shuts off, right? And then there's a refractory period. So yes, everybody is capable. I mean, I know people who have had like who have had like spinal cord injuries that are able to create new neural pathways where they can come. Trans people who've had bottom surgeries can come.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you've had like all of your parts rearranged surgically, you can come. It's totally a biological
Such
reality.
a great motivational speech. I love it. I always think about the person that walks into the middle of this podcast decontext, and just like, if you have had spinal surgery, you can come. You can come. Like, yeah! I will come. We all come.
I figured out how to come out of my third eye.
Yoni.
Just comedy. A little comedy in between the real discussion.
Wait, and then there's something in the book about something called, you have a section in there, speaking of people that have spinal cord injuries, about, I also wanted to say that I've had orgasms as a young man I once had an orgasm here. No physical contact initiated yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing.
At the Swedish American musical?
I'm sorry?
You said you had an orgasm here.
Oh, here at the Swedish American Musical? Yeah, when I said once, I meant as soon as you pulled out this life-size clitoris, I had a gigantic...
You're soaking in it. It's a little commercial. It's an old commercial with Madge.
But, it is interesting that your mind, we call it we used to make fun of one of our friends who could have an orgasm watching Girls Gone Wild commercials, and we called it the mind jack,
That's good, yeah.
And it is kind of crazy that your mind is so powerful that it can just make your body be like, kid, that's the sound I make. And so in that way, I guess, is it true, do you know, if you had a spinal cord injury and you were unable to have a physical sensation in your genitals, let's say, that you could start to train your brain a la Daredevil to come using only your mind?
Does Daredevil come only using his mind?
No, but he's blind.
I've been watching the show wrong.
Well, he's blind, so he has other powers. Like you're quadriplegic, so you're I'm gonna keep coming, and I'm gonna make my neural pathways connect sexy thoughts to feeling.
Yeah. So there are things called I think casually called nerve mapping or sensation mapping, where you
that sounds casual. Yeah. Casually called sensation mapping.
But yeah, you can kind of touch two parts of the body at the same time and start kind of pulling pathways. It's kind of like looking at new kinds of porn to find new things to arouse you. It's kind of just creating cycles of feedback where you're finding my way into this. Yep, now I'm into this, right?
Some people do new kinds of porn. I just look up Jewish boy humiliated. That's all. I don't know.
That's actually the new kind of porn I was just looking up. I'm not actually kidding about that. Before Tumblr got taken away.
Wait, Jewish boys humiliated?
Yeah. It's a long
we need
story.
To talk. I need to talk to David Owen. Can I get you up front? What?
It's just video of Jared Kushner.
I wish. He's just giving a straight-on political speech, and you're just this is humiliating.
What if you've been through all the kinds of porn?
Right.
Then you make some new ones.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of actual sex. So we talked about orgasm, and we talked about consent, and we've talked about how to negotiate your boundaries. By the way, as a disclaimer, obviously nothing up here is a full-on expansive conversation about any of these topics. Get the book, Girl Sex 101. It honestly has all of these conversations fleshed out with slightly more respect for the subject matter.
Just a little bit.
So, okay, let's start at the basics. Hand sex is the way that you describe it, and you're talking
Favorite thing.
That's your favorite?
Yeah, I fucking love
Interesting.
it. Yeah.
Tell me about it. I'm sorry, that sounded so much creepier than I wanted it to. What are some of the techniques and the etiquette around hand sex? And what is it? What do you even mean by that?
Well, hand sex is a flavor of sex. Even though I think I read a stat that only 45% of Americans consider hands to be part of sex. It basically means using your hands to stimulate somebody's genitals or your own genitals for fun and pleasure. So hand sex can be jacking somebody off or fingering or butt stuff, all sorts of fun things. But I love...
I just laughed like an embarrassed.
I had just inserted my hand into Andy's anus.
not my popcorn. That's not my hand. That's not my popcorn.
I just liked, Allison, that you're a sex educator for a living, and even when you said butt stuff, you affected an accent. It was, well, we got vaginal, clitoral, butt stuff. If you want that butt stuff. Even we all have our, you know.
I take a lot of pleasure in my job.
Yeah. Okay, so and you have to. It sounds so obvious, but reading your book, it's also fresh on my mind. Wash your fucking hands, right?
Oh my God, please wash your hands. I mean, also gloves are great. I have we have friends now in sex education world where when they go to the doctor and the doctor puts on that little latex glove and you hear that snap, you're just like, ugh.
Oh,
because
really?
gloves are so common in like orgies because they're just easier, right? Like, if you
What
got
about mittens?
I know. Why?
Well, Natasha, you're from New Hampshire, so you probably do go, oh, when you hear mittens.
Oh yeah, no, we thumb each other all the time.
Mitten fisting is a new idea, and I think it should take off.
In fairness, my dog is named Mittens, so.
I knew there would be a callback. I knew it.
Anything else we need to know about the techniques for hand sex?
Well, I mean, okay.
Oh.
I mean, yeah.
Right, no, I know.
Jesus.
Wait, but you have all these
You're
jargon.
moving so fast.
I know,
Moshe.
unfortunately.
Slow down.
that's-
Enjoy yourself a little bit more.
Oh, let me just tell you. I have something to tell you, and I'm afraid that you're going to reject this information and think that I am not a good podcaster when I tell you this. But and what I want to have happen is for you to accept me for who I am. But I can't ever be given any feedback on anything. Okay? No. The unfortunate reality of this podcast is it's such I get these brilliant people on who have these like deep and insightful like deep dives on topics, and I'm trying to like surface my way to the end of their subject of their expertise. But yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Let's slow down. Let's make this a little more respectful. Is squirting pee? What is that?
It's not, right?
Hot button issue. Okay, so researchers have been having this conversation for way too long. You'd think it'd be easy enough to study. It's actually not. So there are two schools of thought. One is that it's mostly pee with some other stuff. And the other school of thought is that it's not pee, or maybe there's a little bit of pee.
Let me just focus on the phrasing schools
right?
of thought. I love that very much. I'm from me. What is my academic designation? I'm from the mostly pee with some other stuff. Why do they keep studying it? Like, who's funding it?
Because we still don't know, and that's the thing. The funding for it started fairly recently. I mean, for a long time, people have been talking about squirting, and there was no research out there, none. And now we're getting a little bit more research of is it pee, is it not pee thing. So yeah, there's still kind of a fervent debate in the sex education community about what actually squirt is, and there's also a conversation about the difference between female ejaculate and squirt.
Whoa.
Don't get me started.
School of thought. Yeah, right. Because female ejaculate is what comes out of a woman, and squirt is like a grapefruit soda. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not my best joke, but the one I wanted to tell.
Without be able to get too deep into the conversation, I'm a pleasure-focused sex educator, so my whole thing is like, are you having fun?
Right.
Is everybody having fun? Then who the fuck cares if it's pee or not?
Who cares if it's pee?
Sure, until it's time to do the laundry, right?
You're like,
And it's not so much fun.
Michael's like, my wife cares because I won't stop squirting, and she keeps asking me, is it pee? And I say, no, it's shit. Is there a way to make a person squirt? Is there a physiological, like, this will make a person squirt more than this?
There is a way to help someone squirt. There's not a way
Hydrate?
to make someone squirt. Yeah. That actually is, that's good, Michael. Yes, that's number one, yeah.
How do you help someone squirt?
So the G-spot is on the inside of vaginas.
We know for Natasha to play her Jared Kushner clips, but for the rest of us.
Yeah, so G-spot stimulation and a lot of mental relaxation. But usually squirting comes easier with orgasm, but the way I've thought about it, the way I learned how to do it is it's kind of like reversing the energy of an orgasm. For a lot of people with vaginas, when we come, we squeeze and we pull up the energy and we tighten everything. So squirting and learning how to squirt is kind of reversing that energy and pushing and bearing down and out. There's a sex educator named Tallulah Sulis who calls it giving birth to one's orgasm.
Whoa.
Right? It's bearing down.
That's like some yoni shit right there.
Yeah, it is some
That's
yoni
close.
shit, yeah.
That's close to yoni.
It's pretty
So there's
close.
no easy squirt cuts.
Natasha Muse on this season of Two Dope Queens. I mean, she is. It seemed like I was doing a bit, and then I. Anyway, where am I at?
Wait, where's the G-spot on the model?
Oh, so not there, but
I got this one, Allison.
All right, so Moshe,
Oh my God, there's now a plush pussy puppet that is
so
coming
can you
to
hold this
thing.
one for me now?
Of course I can hold
Okay.
this.
So she's seen some stuff, but yeah, thank you for holding
Yeah, I
my
should
vulva.
put
All
my
right, so
face
this
on
is
it.
the vulva. So the G-spot is on the inside of the vagina, about I think like a knuckle to a knuckle and a half on the belly button side of the body, and you can feel the texture because it has a distinct texture when it's engorged with blood. So when it's really aroused, you can feel it kind of dip into the vaginal canal, and so with this you can kind of see it. Some people can bear down and kind of push it out, so it's represented by the little pink ribbon here.
Do you know what the Chinese called that area of the vagina? The valley of the water chestnut teeth.
Teeth?
Yeah, like little teeth made of water chestnuts.
Oh.
I like it.
I like that too. That's very evocative.
And then they also called the area beyond, I guess, where it opens up into the cervix. They call that the valley of the deep chamber.
Yeah.
I've heard. It might not be true. You're all reacting like I'm doing something terrible right now.
No, I fucking love that. That's gorgeous. Thank you.
I made it up.
Yeah, so when it gets engorged with blood, the way I think of it, if you take your tongues now and keep them in your mouth, but run them back behind the back of your teeth up towards the roof of your mouth, you'll feel...
Oh, sorry.
You feel the texture of your mouth kind of change. It kind of gets those ripples. That's often the texture of the G-spot when it's engorged. So for squirting purposes, if you're trying to learn how to, there's this technique that we often call the come hither, where you take the two fingers of one hand and kind of hook them behind the G-spot and come hither, kind of yoink. It's a technical term, yoink, towards the outside of the body.
For those of you at home, the movement is like if there was an iPhone inside of your partner in reverse and you were scrolling through social media from behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The come hither, right.
Yeah, so you're kind of nudging things out of the urethra.
Is it true at all that, true that the prostate, for those that were born with prostates and not G-spots, is it the same like physiological, like how a clit is a penis and how labia are testes?
Oh, labia!
Wait, is that right? Labia are testes?
Yeah, so the outer labia on people assigned girls at birth are the same tissue as the scrotal tissue.
So is the prostate the G-spot?
So yeah, we often call the G-spot, not often, people refer to the G-spot as the female prostate. So I don't know if it's actually from the same tissue, but it is like the Skene's glands, right? So, so in terms of the actual, like the fluids that come out of the body, the Skene's glands add Skene's fluid, and that's often the additive to squirt or ejaculate that we are familiar with, where the Skene's glands will kind of yoink some fluid into the urethra that comes out of the urethral opening.
And the prostate, is that pee?
Is the prostate pee?
Yeah, is that made out of pee-pee? Is that...
No.
I expected, I will say, the largest laugh of the evening. And the silence was now I am stone. I feel stone.
Is the G-spot cursive?
That was good, because the silence that was met by that joke far exceeded the silence.
That's what I want to do. I'm trying to take the steam up.
Yeah, that was
very generous.
Thank you. Very generous.
No, I don't know what a G-spot is. I don't understand what you're saying. I understand what the clitoris is. I'm very angry.
Wait, there's a puppet you can look at.
But what's the G
So the G
about
spot.
it?
So it's the urethral sponge. So there's some spongy tissue that surrounds the urethra on the inside of the body, and we believe that it's kind of helps protect the urethra from impact as things are going in and out of the vagina. And so the urethral sponge surrounds the entire shaft of the urethra as it comes out of the body, and that's where it gets engorged with blood and engorged with other fluids as arousal happens. And that's often the fluid that you're helping coax out during, when you're trying to help somebody squirt.
All right. Hand sex, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on. Let's make it a little racier. You guys ready for the next level? We figured out come hither. We figured out there's a lot of. I wanted you to go through some of the hand sex techniques that you described.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a thing for it?
I do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that.
So many visual aids, great for podcasting.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
That's not mine?
No, I hope not.
Oh, okay.
Well, I did come to your hotel room last night.
Right.
So yeah, if you hold this real quick, a couple of fun. So
this is a fleshlight, ladies and gentlemen. No need for anyone at home to know. Your podcast listeners, you own one.
Yeah. Hand sex techniques can be all sorts of fun things. This can perfectly work well on a flaccid or semi-flaccid penis as well. But there's a move called the pussy hug that Midori is a sex educator. She talks about.
That's so sweet.
It is. And it's like you have the energy of like a firm hug, right? So it's like it kind of helps you understand
I'm just showing Natasha and Michael. Wait, hug. Please hug it. Okay, there, pussy hug. Okay.
And then there's a move that my partner and I kind of argue about who came up with the term, but the inverted Vulcan. So if there are any Trekkies in the house, so you live long and prosper, and then you flip it upside down, and then you put pressure on this way. So it's like the pussy hug, but you've got two fingers on either side.
Oh wow! Oh, it's like an upside down W, but with two legs missing. Cool, I get it. I don't know what a Vulcan is, but I know what that is. Okay.
Yeah, so that technique helps with kind of stimulating the internal structure of the clitoris because you're putting pressure on the outer labia, and then you can kind of grind. Another technical term.
It's almost like you're pinching the labia. For those listening at home, you're almost pinching the labia and the clitoris between the middle of your fingers and
the flat
doing your thing. Okay,
yeah, and then you can also like interact with these if you're going to talk about cunnilingus, which is awesome. But you can use these hand techniques while you're also eating puss.
Oh, eating pussy, great.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I'm glad you brought that
How do
up.
I specifically do
No,
it?
no. Okay. What are some of the techniques that you talk about in the book for that?
Sure. So understanding the same things around like putting pressure on the vulva is really helpful and important because you're putting pressure, and instead of with your hand during hand sex, you're using your face to generate the pressure. You kind of create a firm base on which your partner can smooge their own selves. So that's really important.
Smooge?
Yeah. Smooge. Yeah.
Wait, what is smooge?
I have a degree in neuroscience.
What is smooching? Is what, coming or?
Oh, here, can you hold it? Does somebody hold the vulva? Yeah. So
I'd love to hold this fleshlight. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then smooching.
Oh, smooching.
Yeah, kind of like a grindy, pressury smooge.
Okay.
Is that not a word that people use? Okay.
No,
That's my
definitely not.
favorite Carlos Santana song is Smooch.
Yeah.
So take us through cunnilingus. Take us through that.
Sure. Yeah. So generating creating a firm base that your partner can put pressure and kind of put pressure on your face, and then or whoever's face we're talking about here, and then kind of isolating the clitoral glands inside your mouth. And so there's a general rule that I talk about when I talk about clitorises, quote unquote female pleasure in general, is variety then consistency. So if you've heard the alphabet thing where you like do the alphabet with your tongue, oh my girlfriend really likes J, whatever. It's that's trying to get to a very real thing I've noticed in sex is like try a bunch of different things.
Like spelling?
Like spelling, yeah.
I don't think that's gonna work.
Until you find the thing that your partner likes, and then you keep doing that thing. Forever.
Wait, forever?
Forever.
Well, what if they stop liking it at some
You
point?
live there now. You don't know. So yeah, if they stop liking it, then you move on to something else. But generally speaking, if you're trying to help somebody with a clitoris come, variety then consistency, find the thing that she likes or they like or he likes, and then do that thing until your face goes numb and you see your grandma.
Whoa.
And then you're probably on the right track.
Wait a minute, but I call my penis my grandma. I'm really confused.
Okay, we'll have to come up with a different one for you.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Kumquat. How about that?
Kumquat, yeah. Variety is the rule of sex. Yeah. So that's generally.
But you're saying variety is not the rule of sex. You're saying find something that works and keep on doing it.
Okay, so everybody's body is different, but when you find what that specific person likes, then stick with that.
And if you're having sex with somebody who has a penis, then do the pepper grinder, right?
Yeah, classic move, pepper grinder. Skin burn, all those sexy things. Yeah, no. So the pepper grinder.
I did that for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah. So the pepper grinder is a technique that can work for some people with adequate lubrication.
Right.
Which is
let's
actually
talk lube.
Yeah, let's talk lube. Yeah. But so again, like the phallus and the clitoris, they're both erectile tissue. They're both made of the same stuff. The glans has the highest packed nerve endings of the penis, but a lot of people prefer shaft stimulation to gland stimulation because the glands can get overstimulated really easily. This is the same thing for clits and penises. So exploring different things, but again, like with blowjobs, we have this notion that like all penises like the same touch, and that's just not the case. It's important for us to explore like what works for your partner. Some people really like ball stuff. Some people really like perineum stuff. Some people really like anal stuff in combination with.
It's hard to ask though when you have a dick in your mouth.
That's true.
That's why you go to a Denny's, Michael, and have the conversation beforehand. What about lube? And actually, I will slide that on top of our other topic, which is anal. How about let's talk lube, anal, pegging. What?
Yeah.
Tell us about lube and tell us how to get pegged, because Natasha Leggero is listening right now. No, but how do you?
So are you trying to convince your wife to peg you?
No, I'm just trying to convince you to tell me about pegging.
Oh, okay. No, because I'll help with that too.
Oh, awesome. Really? You do hands-on negotiation
I'm
counseling?
all about convincing people to do things sexually. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know who she is?
Mm-mm.
I
I
feel
know
like
who
she was
is,
sort of born to fuck me, so I don't think it would take a lot of
That's so
negotiation.
romantic.
She'd already be strapping it on I had a thought, and I would already be.
Yeah, so lubrication is a very important part of sexuality, and everybody likes different amounts of lubrication, but I think it's really helpful to bring your own, right? I think we should combine it with condoms as though it's just a thing that you have, because again, like erections, lubrication, like natural vaginal lubrication, is incredibly complex stuff. It often happens when you don't want it to. It sometimes doesn't happen when you really, really do. And so understanding that just like we have kind of this notion that like penises have to be rock hard for us to signify that we're down and ready to fuck, vaginal lubrication feels the same way for people. And so if you can kind of help kind of de-escalate that concern by bringing your own, that's really helpful. Lubrication is like practically required with anal sex because the anus does not self-lubricate. The vagina usually does.
Oh my God, oh no. Thank you guys, I gotta wrap this up. I just found out something is wrong, very wrong. No, it does, it can self-lubricate. If you eat spicy enough food, it can self-lubricate. Now, on that one, you're wrong, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, so.
So bring your lube, BYOL, boil.
Yeah.
Always bring lube. With anal, you always must.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can negotiate that should you be into all sorts of other things, but
Right.
almost always people really want lubrication. And for solo anal play, just if you're going to put something in your butt, make sure it's designed to go in your butt. You live in San Francisco, you have like 5 good vibrations here, so buy a toy specifically designed for anal penetration, or use a penis that's attached to a partner, because they are the flared base. If you have a problem, they will not get lost inside your anus. Yeah.
I do feel so badly that I am giving such short shrift to these like deep topics, but I also want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for people in the audience who are dying with questions, if you are, to approach the microphone. If you want to ask a question, there's a microphone right there in the middle aisle. You can just come on up and line up, and we'll keep talking while we wait for people to come up if you want to ask a question. Pegging, let's talk about that.
Second favorite thing.
Wait, your first favorite is the
Hand sex.
factoid that the clitoris has the same amount of erectile tissue as the phallus, and your second favorite is pegging?
No, my first favorite thing to do in bed is hand sex. My second favorite thing to do in bed is pegging.
Is to peg someone?
Yeah.
Oh, hell
big
yeah.
Fan. Big fan.
Okay.
Again, like, I mean, it's just my opinions.
Because you're into bullet stuff.
Bullet stuff.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I swear, I have no idea what that word. I've heard it.
I've heard it before. You know how sometimes your jean legs are too wide? If you taper them in like this and fold them over, that's called pegging.
Oh.
See how it creates a nice line against your
And unbelievably, Andy, it's Allison's favorite thing to do in bed. Second favorite.
I like flare pants.
Pegging. Oh, Allison, I was going to explain, but you can do it better than me.
Traditionally speaking, so pegging is kind of a gendered term, but it usually means a female-bodied person putting on a strap-on and fucking a usually male-bodied person up the butt.
What kind of reactions are these?
Oh, we have somebody in line. We have someone. Pegging. I want to get to that. But there's someone in line. But you know what? Hold your horses. What's the best way to negotiate that kind of a thing? Because that's an intense thing for some people, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of cis men don't. I mean, a lot of heterosexual cis men don't often explore their anuses for a lot of cultural reasons.
Somebody almost started applauding. Oh yeah, we don't. That's right. Never even looked. Never even wiped.
And so I think for a lot of people it can be scary, but also very sexy to explore anal penetration with a partner, and that can be for all sorts of like power dynamic BDSM reasons, but it can also just be like exploring a new part of pleasure in my own body or in one's own body. And so yeah, it's I encourage people to start small, practice, start with handheld toys.
1 pound?
1 pound, yeah.
1 pound peg?
It's like kettlebells, you just want to keep on going out. Yeah.
It's an ounce of prevention.
What's that?
It's an ounce of prevention.
Oh, so it's equal pound of peg.
But I feel like a lot of people can get intimidated by the size of dildos that you often find in the store. So I recommend for anal sex exploring with longer, thinner dildos because the anus often really notices girth because it notices girth. But if you're exploring with wearing a strap-on for the first time, it's often because you don't have the biofeedback of feeling your own cock. You can often lose track on where it is inside the body. And so one of the things that can be uncomfortable when you're exploring with strap-on sex is you can kind of pull out and not notice. So a longer dildo for anal sex is really helpful, and thinner so that you can kind of work up with the girthy as somebody explores what feels good is usually helpful.
I don't feel so well.
I want a dildo so long I can be scrambling eggs in the room next door and be getting pegged while Natasha watches Netflix in the bedroom. A question here. Yes, thank you so much. Hello.
Yes, thank you for wrapping up about the pegging.
Whoa! Do not, wait, don't kink shame me, okay?
What I meant
respect the diversity of my perversity. I lived in the Bay Area too long. Yoni. Yes.
No, absolutely. What I meant was I was more interested in that than answering my own question.
Oh, yeah. So what's up? Tell me what your question is.
So, male pleasure is obviously valued over women's wellness overall, as evidenced by, the number of ED medications that are covered by insurance.
Thank you for validating that, by the way. I feel heard. I finally feel heard and seen. Thank you.
Finally, the men get a little bit of a...
What are the conversations that need to be had or the things that we need to do maybe on a larger scale beyond speaking with your own healthcare provider to make women's pleasure be a part of health?
Can I ask a question before that? That's a great question. Do you think that male sexual pleasure, I hear your point about erectile dysfunction. Sometimes I think about sex as we're just so parochial and backwards about it that pleasure isn't even a part of the principle. But do you think that male sexual pleasure is a part of, is less difficult for the healthcare profession to talk about, that they specifically value male sexual pleasure as well?
Oh, 100%. I also think that because it's hard to separate male ejaculation from male pleasure.
Tell me about it, sister. I hear you.
Cycle. So it's like we have ED drugs that we're advertising to men in their 50s and 60s who might not be interested in having babies, but we talk about it as though it's like, well, it'll help. It helps, right? And there's also this notion that sex can't exist without an erect penis in the room, right? And so I think that that's a huge problem. I think talking about female sexual pleasure is something that is, I see it happening a lot more. I think it's happening in great ways, but even, I still go to doctors' offices and they have a diagram of the vulva and they don't have the internal clitoral structure represented. They actually just show it as the little bean because as Western medicine kind of just rediscovered the internal clitoral structure, we knew about it like throughout history, but then it kind of got erased. Because I think, like a woman does not need to come to be able to get pregnant. And so there's this notion of we kind of collapse reproduction with pleasure. But I think that in order for us to really get better at it. I mean, I think we need to start advocating for it a lot more. I recently talked about getting my IUD and how incredibly painful it was and how they didn't offer me any sort of prescription drugs and I demanded them because I was freaking out. I tweeted this and like hundreds of women started sharing their own stories of how they didn't get offered any sort of drugs around their getting their IUD, even though you're cramming your cervix open and shoving some metal shit in there.
Wait, you wanted drugs after an IUD? I mean, you just got pulled over for drunk driving. I don't. Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes from advocating for oneself. I think that understanding that like raising the amount of pleasure in society is good for society. I think we're still just trying to get to a point where even having that conversation that like making or helping your partner come is just a nice, good thing to do. I think we have to remember that these conversations, they've been happening for a long time, but we're just starting to kind of reach tipping points. I'm optimistic. It's hard to be these days, but I think I'm optimistic in terms of like the more we advocate for ourselves in bed. Like, I mean, again, some of us are fucking doctors. If you can advocate for yourself in bed with that doctor, maybe they have an ability to help be advocated towards with their patients as well, understanding how important this stuff is.
Yeah, you know, I'm realizing my first question about consent and like people feeling skeeved out like about a vibe killer. It's like it almost was like mainly thinking about like me, man thing. Like, you know, it's like the modality is all like geared toward, even the conversation around the consent conversations is geared towards the comfort of cis kind of men, and like it is interesting that like the conversations might get longer and they might get more complicated, but probably more people will find pleasure at the end of them.
We've been desperate for you guys to have it with us. We've
Right.
been trying to have it with you for millennia, and men are just finally getting the message that we want to have the conversation.
Well, all right, I will have a long talk with my wife. We have another question. Thank you for your question. There's another question behind you.
Yeah. I've been really curious about friction versus lubrication. You know, my husband likes lubrication, I like friction. What's the difference?
Yeah, I don't even understand your question, so yes. What is the difference? I don't get it.
Well, so you mean like topping, bottoming, does it make a difference in that way?
Oh, you
or
like
just
less lube.
Correct.
And he likes more.
Yeah.
Slidey, and you like Bernie.
Sure.
Bernie 20. On socialism. Oh wait, no, it was wrong socialism. Okay, go ahead.
So are you talking about both topping and bottoming? You like friction, or does it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, again, like the diversity of human experience, I think is valid. I think that when you're talking about anal sex, hair is an issue, right? So there will be friction added by the presence of hair around the anus or on the scrotum in general.
This guy doesn't know. He's like, I've never looked.
But I mean, are you talking about like how to even figure out what's an appropriate amount for the both of you, or
none at all?
Yeah, I mean, if none at all works for you, that's great, and I certainly did not mean to explain that it needed to be.
Oh, I didn't know. Wait, can I just ask an asterisk? Is that a thing? Sometimes you can have hot anal action with zero lubrication?
If everybody's having a good time.
I mean, is that a thing? I don't want to ask you because you only came to ask a question, so I'm going to pretend I don't already know that detail about you, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, but again, everybody's got their own thing about what feels good, and again, I can talk from my level of expertise, but ultimately, the expertise you need to defer to is the person in bed with you.
Right.
So, by all means, like if you're saying, yeah, let's raw dog it all over the place, by all means, raw dog it all over the place, and that sounds fucking great as long as everybody's having a good time.
I've been to that bar actually, right down the street. Raw dog it all over. So, all right.
Is it called mittens?
Thank you for your question. Did that answer it?
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have one more question behind.
Hello, I wanted to ask about multiple orgasms because they seem like superpowers. And I do feel like that cis women and trans men have this kind of natural advantage to be able to do multiple orgasms, but I know that cis men, trans women can do this as well. Talk to me about this.
Oh, wait a minute. I got this. You know, even the phrase multiple orgasms is cis male centric because it implies that the default orgasm is one and done because we're used to focusing on men's pleasure. I just read her book.
I'm so turned on right now, Moshe.
Hello. DX795 calling. Okay.
Never say one and done again, okay?
So
the Wayfair commercial?
That's fair, Andy. So yeah, what about multiple orgasms? What is the road and what?
Yeah, so again, there are kind of two schools of thought. When people talk about multiple orgasms, we often think of it as this very cis male-centric thing of like climbing the mountain, reach the top of the mountain, fall off the mountain, and then this huge arc, and then the refractory period, and then back up again. I think a lot of people's experiences of multiple orgasms are more like the beach ball at the concert, where you like get it up and then it kind of comes back down a little bit and then you get it up again, and then it kind of keeps on going. So that's one difference I think that you might be noticing. My personal angle on it is that some people do it naturally, which is awesome. Some people you might notice like I want to keep going, right? And this is for penis owners as well. Sometimes you might, lucky folks, you come and then you're like, wait, I got another one in the chamber. Hold on.
Oh, a whole other one?
Well, I mean, not necessarily come.
Now you're talking my language.
No, because sometimes there's a little extra.
Yeah?
They're like, wait a minute, there's a little extra. Hey, what do you mean? We're talking about sex over here.
That's also like
What am I, your
peeing
dad?
when you're old.
Yes, exactly.
What's that say?
That's also like peeing when you're old. You're like, oh, there was more.
Yeah, totally. And you're woken up in the middle of the night like, oh, I gotta come.
Yeah, so penis owners can like ejaculate an orgasm and then find that they still have another orgasm in them, even if not, there's no ejaculate left. So that's certainly a thing that happens, and you've got more basically ability to kind of create those yummy clenchings. I think that there are strategies for people who are interested in exploring different like sexual modalities. There's the Taoist sexual practices talk about like kind of orgasmic control, so you can separate ejaculation from orgasm. That's a really common thing to do, so that you can so a lot of people find that they can learn how to keep orgasming or keep that energetic orgasm happening and then withhold the ejaculate for when they're like ready to be done. And so
wow.
Yeah, and so it's usually about
That actually happened.
Oh yeah?
That actually happened to me once with this guy I was fucking around with, and he just started orgasming, and it kind of lost track of me. He was just in his own thing, doing his own thing for like minute, like just for a long time. It was very frustrating actually.
How did he get his own
Oh
thing?
yeah, well honestly that's cool and all, but I don't think that coming up and asking a question on my podcast is the right forum for you to confront me on that. If you wanted to have a conversation about it, I'm available. God, Brian. Thank you for your question. We're running towards the end of the talk. I wanted to ask you, and I'll give you a little moment to sort of wrap up your theories here. But do you think becoming good at sex, like, you can go from being bad at sex to being straight up really good at it, or is sex like comedy? Like, you're kind of just like funny or you're not.
And we've seen good examples of that just on this panel.
That hurt. That one got in. That one got in. He kids, but he hurts.
Like obviously, I'm saying, like obviously you can become better at sex, and obviously you can become more like conscious around sex and more open around talking about consent, and more respectful and more interested in your partner's pleasure. But there is some element of talent, isn't there? There is some element of like, I mean, you must have been with a few partners who are like, whoa, that person, wow, real good, right?
Yeah. I think that there is a level of learning to listen that's really important. I absolutely, the answer to your question is yes. You can go from like just completely dumbfounded to very, very good. I think it involves learning about its communication skills, right? And learning how to communicate is really key. I know it's boring, but it's true. Understanding anatomy is really helpful as well. Exploring your own body, exploring other people's bodies, just amassing experience is really helpful. I think that approaching people with curiosity and a kind of beginner's mind is a very good way of approaching it. And I've definitely been with people who might have all the techniques down, but just in terms of their own like physical wherewithal. They might have clumsy hands, or they might not necessarily have a lot of deftness in their bodies. And I've noticed that kind of can get in the way of feeling really good. But those are things that you can learn. And you can learn them through mindfulness exercises. You can learn them through just practicing all sorts of dexterity things. I know it sounds really weird and clinical, but just practicing your embodiment is really huge for being able to touch other people's bodies with pleasure and intention.
So you can get good. And what I would like to know, what you'd like to leave people with. I know that we've run roughshod over your life's work very quickly, but
raw dog it, yeah.
And we've raw dogged your life's work, and we've left it quivering in multiple orgasmic pleasure in the corner. But what is and I really do encourage people to buy the book and to read the book, because I really do think it's interesting, and also it was interesting for me as a man, and like, even as a person that doesn't consider myself like a sexual sort of neophyte, there was a lot of stuff in there that I was like, I had no idea this was. So it's very instructive and fun to read. It's really good. But what is the Allison Moon message for people that are starting on the journey of their sexuality or deep into it and not where they want to be?
Yeah, no body is broken. The way that pleasure moves through you is valid, and you should be okay with accepting that and exploring that in a good way. Masturbate. Just masturbate.
I wish you had left it at that, actually.
I can
Masturbate. Ladies and gentlemen, masturbate. Just masturbate. Allison Moon, everyone. Parna, Andy Kindler, Michael Ian Black, Natasha Muse. Thank you very much, San Francisco Sketchfest. Appreciate you very much. And see you next time, Hound Tall.